John Pollock here with you, along with John Ramdeen and Robin Black. It is all confirmed now. George St-Pierre's pending return to the UFC. The deal has been signed. Freddie Roach was on the MMA Hour this week discussing how he ended up being a big part of these negotiations with the UFC to hammer down this deal and make it work for both parties. So now that it is set, we look ahead to what does make the most sense for George St-Pierre at this point. He is obviously looking for big fights. It would appear that he's not really looking at the welterweight title as something to go after.
Do you blame him?
Especially if Stephen Thompson is your champion after UFC 209. It doesn't seem that, with all due respect to Tyron Woodley and Stephen Thompson, those are not the biggest fights you can make for George St-Pierre if that's what you're strictly looking at. Big fights with George St-Pierre, because there may not be a ton of them left.
Very true, but at the same time, George St-Pierre, he's a martial artist, and you're in a room full of other martial artists, and you would love to brag. One of the guys that he loves watching, he understands that he's a competitor, is Damian Maia. He says he wants to fight Damian Maia. You go out and Damian Maia, all the people in the room, they're patting you on the back to say, awesome job, because Damian Maia is a savage. When it comes to the biggest money fights and legacy fights, you want to fight with Michael Bisping. Michael Bisping is going to sell the hell out of this fight. People were talking about GSP and Anderson Silva for years, so maybe he goes up to 185 pounds. He'll make a boatload of money there. But we were with Firas, I think we're in Saskatchewan, and he was talking about when Nate Diaz and Conor were fighting, George St-Pierre was ringside, and he told George, call out the winner. Of course, they wanted.
It was Nate at the time.
It was Nate at the time. So he said, because this is your opportunity, you get yourself a huge fight, and it'll be the most money.
That was the card that George was there for, and then of course Nate Diaz won that
The
fight.
truth is, he had no contract.
Yeah.
So you call a guy out, you get everybody excited. Actually, that would be an interesting position of leverage. But so Rory has said this, Firas has alluded to this, and I can tell you, George said it to my face. He wants to fight Michael Bisping, and then he wants to fight Conor McGregor. And I know that there is a 30-pound weight difference between the two. He is a welterweight fighter who, if he doesn't cut weight, can be the exact same size fighter and fight at middleweight instead. A welterweight fighter walks around in the world at 195 pounds. Instead of doing all the dehydrating and stuff, skip a few breakfasts and run on the treadmill and you fight Bisping. If you win that, now you are a welterweight fighter who needs to drop to 155 with the right nutrition and the right focus and it can be achieved. I know that lots of people who can't accomplish it, like Cyborg or Johnny Hendricks or any of these, oh no, you can't cut. It can be done. You lose a little bit of muscle, you change the way that you diet, you change the way that you eat day to day for months at a time, and you drop weight classes. People have done it since time began.
The question is, so if you drop weight, do you have to amend your strategies? Do you have to change the way that you fight based on the fact that, okay, I'm going to lose muscle mass, I'm going to lose power, now I have to change a few things?
You become a different person. You're not as powerful. So you are, at 85, he's a welterweight fighting at 85. So he has the power and the strength and all the things of a welterweight, kind of like when McGregor fought at 70. He's the same guy, just doesn't go through all the weight cutting, which failed McGregor the first time. There were all kinds of surprises he didn't expect in performance. But when you drop a weight class, so a welterweight fighting at middleweight, not that big a deal, make some adaptations, but a welterweight becoming a lightweight, not cutting to lightweight, losing weight and restructuring his body to become a lightweight, everything changes. You're not the same, you're not as strong, and when the Cyborg conversation would happen, people's like, yeah, but she won't be as strong at 135. Of course not, because she would be a bantamweight. George, of course, wouldn't be as strong at 155 because he would actually become a lightweight. You'd move differently, you recover different, your food, your energy, a lot of things change. So in this fantasy world where George beats Michael Bisping, you need 4, 5, 6 months to then become a lightweight and adapt to being a new human being with a new body.
So would it cut you off, would it make sense if he fights Michael Bisping to take a fight at 170 pounds and then go down to 155 pounds?
If I'm his team, and we have some insight into how Firas and himself and everybody else thinks, knowing them as we do, you would just set up some welterweight scrimmages in the gym on your way back down. So re-anchor yourself, have the focus of a fight in the gym or 5 rounds of real focused fighting in an environment with maybe 5 different guys at welterweight, and then slowly work your way back down. It requires a lot of work. Everything can be achieved, but you need nutritionists who understand we're not cutting the weight, we're losing the weight. You need strength and conditioning people that understand you need to acclimatize to your new body. You need skill development people like for us and the rest of the team who understand how your skills will change at your new weight and your new size.
Holy
It's complicated,
smokes.
but it can be done. And imagine doing it in 1 year, go up one, win a belt, and go down one, win a belt. However,
After
Michael
bingo.
Bisping has something to say about that on the way up. And both are hard. Going up and fighting Bisping, he's a huge, talented man who has just fought huge fights, so that he wouldn't be fazed by George. So it's tough.
Do you feel that, throwing money aside here, because those two fights would be gigantic, and I think George's return regardless, we're talking about big cards that whoever he fights. However, when you stack up all of this, that we're going to go up a weight class we've never fought in, then we're going to drop down 2 weight classes to a weight class I've never fought in, on top of the fact that it's been over 3 years since I've last fought in a fight where he was very much tested by Johnny Hendricks. Many believe he lost that fight. Are you putting too much here on this one guy that if you want to achieve all of this? I mean,
I'm sure there's no timeline.
Should it be one or the other? Like, we're either going up or we're going down, but to do both in the span of, say, 12 months.
The thing about up is you're actually not going up a weight class. You're being the same man.
That's the less
What
problematic.
is Michael Bisping doing?
Michael Bisping is being a huge, powerful, talented, aggressive Michael Bisping. And so you are going up a weight class, but you're not changing your body. Right. You are just fighting bigger men.
So the day of the fight, what would George
hard.
be? George would be 190?
195.
195.
Just like he is at welterweight.
What would Bisping be?
He'd be 210, 215. Your fight, hey man, this whole fantasy where George goes up and down and changes all these things, this is a great strategy. First thing, Michael Bisping's like, yeah, think about doing that. Well, yeah, don't gain weight to fight me. Just fight me as a welterweight who doesn't cut weight. Great. Bisping just loves the sound of all of this because imagine, well, I beat Anderson Silva, I beat Dan Henderson, and then I beat George St-Pierre. Michael Bisping would be king of the world if he isn't already king of the world.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? This is all a fantasy. Is it possible? Sure. But once you've laid out an idea, you're talking about things over the next couple of years, then for us and a few of your friends slap you around a bit and go, from today forward, we don't think about anything past Michael Bisping. We have this idea, this distant goal that becomes only the immediate goal, only the one thing in front of you. But this is all the kind of nonsense of people like us who are obsessed with fighting.
True.
This conversation is happening all over the place. Our guy over at Metro is asking us about George.
Nico.
Yeah, Nico. It's happening everywhere. You get in a car and the driver's like, "Hey, aren't you guys? Hey, what about George St-Pierre coming back?" Like, so people are
love
talking.
him.
Yeah.
Well, George St-Pierre, he is free to join us at any time to go over all of his future plans. We'll go 5-6 fights into the future. We'll get all of those plans laid out, which, of course, plans, they're about as useless as anything in this sport.
To be honest, Michael Bisping laid out a plan with you.
That's right.
And so it's not like this hasn't been done.
This guy, before he fought CB Dollaway in Montreal, outlined the entire trajectory for him to get to the middleweight title.
And
mind you, this was after his first loss to Luke Rockhold. So this was when Weidman was champion. He believed Weidman was going to lose the title in that time, and he'd still come back, get his win over Luke, and he'd be the champion with 18 months.
Amazing.
We have video proof.
We
of
love
this.
him.
So it can be done. It has been done, but once you lay it out, you talk about it, it feels good, it tastes good, you push it away forever, and there's only the one man.
And George is obsessed.
Yeah.
That's the thing. The reason why he's been able to stay at the top of the mountain is he is so obsessed with doing whatever it takes. So I wouldn't be surprised if he has a plan over the next couple of years and he sticks to it.
Well, the invite's still out there for George, but maybe it's Michael Bisping. We want to hear what the plan is for the next 18 months.
Yeah.
But George St-Pierre, we will await whoever his comeback opponent will be.